It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and my tarot class is predictably empty. And today's a holiday, so I didn't expect people to come. But I had to show up because I'm advertising and I'm trying to get people in here, and well, if they don't come, it's their loss and not mine, yeah? So, what shall we talk about? Because I'm going to give a class whether there's people or not, right? So, yeah. Let's talk about I could talk about the tarot, but I think I would rather answer questions in that respect. Was there any unanswered questions that well, anybody out there watching this video, if you want your questions answered about the tarot, be my guest, write me a note. I'll try to remember and I'll write them down. I didn't write them down today, but I'll try to write them down. I'll bring them if I have a class and nobody comes. We'll deal with it, right? I guess I could discuss the Celtic cross, but no, I think what I really want to discuss is how to survive the ongoing zombie apocalypse, which is kind of what's going on. What do I mean by zombie apocalypse, first of all? What's a zombie? A zombie is a walking dead, right? There's lots of walking dead out there. Just go out the street, you'll find yourself surrounded by walking dead. I have to return this, by the way. This is my coffee, and I have it in this strange little device with a sucker tube. I have to return it. I couldn't find the lady because she closed down the restaurant. But I feel kind of guilty that I have it. Anyways, you go out the street on any normal day. If you're a little bit awake, if you're a little bit, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, as the Bible says, you will see that maybe 9 out of 10 people are zombies. What do I mean by zombies? By zombies, I mean they're going through their motions, they're doing their daily routines, they're acting with no apparent problem or consciousness of the real big problem that we are causing on the earth. All of us. And why 9 out of 10? Because the majority are actually quite happy in their zombie-like state of not being aware of the forces around them. I'll give you an example. If you look at Google Earth and you look at the Earth during the nighttime, you will recognize that all those lights that you see that are the cities of the world are basically fires. They are burning the earth. Literally, we're burning the earth. Why fires? Well, because they generate light and heat and waste products. So we're very evidently setting our world on fire. If you would have been able to look at Google Earth maybe 1,000 years ago, those fires would have been minimal because there was no electric fire. Edison comes along, creates electricity, or is given electricity by some other culture from the stars or from the inner earth, or who knows, right? For all you conspiracy theories out there. Following that, we have the advent of factories and mass production and roads, and we set the earth on fire. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you put fire to a place, you kill the vegetation and the animals around it. Charlie Manson, of all people, talked about it in his writings, which I've studied a little bit. He said, there's basically 4 things that matter on the earth besides man. Aqua, animals, trees, waters, and water and what? Animals, trees, plants, water, and that one. The 4th one was land, I think. I don't remember. Anyways, not that important. The basic 3 are the most important: animals, trees, or plants, and water. The water supply, which I can show you here, actually, that's that lake over there. Let me show it to you. It's about 40 kilometers of water out there. See that beautiful lake? Well, that's 30% of the fresh water that goes to Mexico City. Mexico City does not have fresh water of itself. It has to haul it off from here. It's an artificially created lake with the intention of having water for the city. But it's in danger of becoming urbanized, polluted. I don't think the city planners are not aware of the problem. But when they built the highway over here, the new highway, they actually interrupted the flow of many rivers to do so. And those rivers go into this lake, and the water level went down automatically. It was not something you needed a surveyor or a scientist to explain to you. It was something you could see with your own eyes. So, where am I going with this? Zombies. Vast majority of people in the large urban areas are zombies. They're not really conscious of where they are or what they're doing. And by zombies, I mean people that do not have a contact or an awareness of the life force around them of plants, animals, water. I gotta figure out what this Manson line was at, but it was pretty cool. It was a 4th thing, I forget what it is. Anyways, they're not aware of those basic things, They're washing their cars and spraying bug spray, Monsanto Roundup on the dandelions, for instance. Dandelions are considered a plague, and they spray this Monsanto that kills bees and other important species for pollination. They'll end up without food, without other animals. They don't worry about the species becoming extinct because they don't see themselves as becoming extinct. And they are only concerned with their own little bubble of reality. Nothing wrong with that, except that that little bubble of reality is being jeopardized by their collective neglect. So, give me for instance, slaughterhouses. Now, I'm a carnivore. I eat pork and chicken, and I don't eat beef. I finally give up the beef habit. Something about cows giving us milk that just makes it way too... I love the taste of a good round steak. Don't get me wrong, I adore the taste of beef. buffalo meat, I absolutely crave it. But something about slaughtering the animal that gives us milk just seems a little bit too insane. And that comes from my association with the Hare Krishna movement, which I have a deep respect and appreciation for. And I don't consider myself one of them. I eat pork. Yeah. But I appreciate their efforts, and I see their logic, and I see their beauty. And I'm not into organized religion, I don't think. I'm the brujo of the town. Right? Organized religion burns us at the stake, so I'm not into that. I'm into religious and spiritual freedom. Into getting your own trip together and trying to not harm anybody doing it, you know. That's kind of my... Anyways, we're slaughtering animals, and we're thinking we can resolve the problems in the Ukraine and Michoacan and here in Valle de Bravo with the gun, with the weapons, with the better capacity to slaughter each other. It's like trying to lose weight eating hot dogs instead of hamburgers. You know, it just doesn't add up. If you want to end violence, the first thing you have to do is end it within yourself. Something my dad said, which I keep reminding you guys on these videos, and I keep reminding myself because that's something that's worthy of reminding myself. The trip is skin in. Means you take the mushrooms, you take the peyote, you take the LSD, and you bring it all into your own experience, into your own, and then you can share it. If you actually transcend it, if you actually go through it, you can actually share it afterwards. That's what it's about. You gotta be able to. And I had a sunburn. Yeah, don't believe the sunburn I just had. Really itchy, especially in my chest. So it's a rant, isn't it? It's not a class. It's a rant. That's okay. There's no clients. There's no students. And you can learn everything I know about the tarot on this little video right here. You can order it. It costs us $25. Plus shipping and handling. Not much. So here we are in paradise. This beautiful lake. Let me give you another shot of the lake. My view. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but you can actually penetrate and see the lake through that window there, and the mountains beyond the lake, and the little boats, the boathouses. My camera doesn't have that great of a lens. Today's tarot class brought to you by How to Read the Tarot with Robin Kasmarchak. In this video, we explain 22 major arcana and the 4 suits. The duration of the video is 769 minutes. This video was taped in Valle de Bravo, Edomax, Estado de Mexico. All these videos can be seen freely on YouTube. Doing a search for Tarot del Pulpo or subscribing to my video channel. Of course, if you see them on YouTube, you gotta fish them out because I make a lot of videos, and if you actually order it, I'll send you a nice little tape just like this. What was I ranting on about? Oh yeah, violence. Well, it's just, you know, it's just what I just said in a publication I just made. You can't fight violence with violence. It just doesn't add up. You know, one thing is to defend your house from somebody that comes to rob you or rape you or murder you. You know, there's these gangs of young kids doing shitty things to other human beings all over the world. Young kids and old kids too. One thing is defending yourself from them. You have to be able to defend yourself. You have to be able to know how to defend yourself, and how to use the appropriate force to defend yourself. That's one thing. Another thing entirely is to take the fight to somebody else and say, you know, we're going to get you. Because then you're the aggressor. You're no longer defending, you're aggressing. And that's not the way to get problems resolved. I'll give you for instance. Everybody knows that what makes the mafia run in Mexico is money. Lots of money. Well, that money, which corrupts the government, obviously, and many members of the government, is not going to disappear. You know, the narco money is not just going to go away. It's going to continue being a reasonably good source of income for anybody that is willing to break the law. And there'll be plenty of people in the government and outside of the government that are willing to do it. So if you bring down El Chapo Guzman, or if you bring down La Tuta or something like that, somebody else will take their place, because the money will still be there. The guy that is getting the money will not be there, but the money will still be there. And where does the big chunk of money go? Well, it goes into the most powerful governmental agencies, the police, the army, you know, the Secretary of Education. What is the biggest chunk of money made on the drug war? Well, the money that goes to the police. Why? Because the taxes that people pay are diverted from schools, from helping the poor, from doing whatever, to funding a larger police force that can take care of these people. End result, more death, more violence. You're not going to resolve the drug war fighting mafiosos with bullets. It's just not going to happen. You will control your society that way. You will clank down on any type of freedom or any type of real inspiration, and you will give the power to a greater mafia that controls the tax money. The Pentagon, the FBI, you know, there's just big mobs. They got a lot of money at stake in the drug war, and they don't want to lose that money. So what do you need to do to end the violence? Well, the first thing you need to do to end the violence is to say, these drugs are just medicines. And like all medicines, they are controlled by the health departments. You know, marijuana, peyote, mushrooms, they're ancient traditional medicines that have been used in these lands for thousands of years before the advent of Western society. And to deny that possibility of using these medicines on a clinical and intelligent way is just wrong. They should be studied by the universities, by the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies. But the pharmaceutical companies don't have an interest in giving you drugs that grow out of the earth, because they can't be packaged and they can't be put into little pills that you don't know what they are. They can actually be seen for what they are. So if you have a wide use of medicine, holistic, natural medicine, the pharmaceutical companies will lose a lot of money. Hence, military-industrial complex. Military, because it's the drug war, there's weapons involved. Industrial, because it's the pharmaceutical companies that are not really allowing the progress of these medicines into the popular culture. So, now that we've discovered that, how do we fight it? Well, first you identify who is the bad guy in this case. Bad guy is the people that are protecting their interests against the welfare of everybody else. The mob, obviously, the mob is an interest in making sure that these drugs are still illegal, because then they can control the market, right? Through what? Through weapons. Why do they want to control the market? Because it allows them to do other things that are maybe even more dangerous, like kidnappings, rapes, whatever. But it's very telling, for instance, that Latuta spoke about in his videos. He spoke about the greatest source of income not being drugs, but copper and metals sold to the Chinese illegally. Of course, the Chinese government is going to deny those charges, but I ask you, who is going to be using those metals illegally, and why are they being mined illegally? What part of illegal do we understand in the mining of these metals? It's just common sense. The real addiction here is to money and power, not to drugs. Drugs like cocaine, methamphetamines, crystal, well, those drugs are very addictive. I've known a lot of coke addicts in my life. They need their fix. They want their fix. So the mobs control that, because it's like Coca-Cola, If Coca-Cola was illegal, man, they'd be killing each other for it. If meat was illegal, they would be killing each other for it. So making these drugs illegal is not the solution. Making them available through the medical, through this health sector could work. That could work. I think there's been some studies in Switzerland and the Netherlands where they give folks their heroin and they give them clean needles so they don't infect themselves with AIDS or whatever. That could work pretty well. You have your addicts, put them outside of the regular flow of things so they don't hurt themselves or others with their addictions, and you monitor their intake of drugs on a medical level instead of on a criminal level. That's how it could work. But that would require that people wake the fuck up. So we go back to the zombie apocalypse, which is ongoing now since year one of planet Earth. Wake the fuck up, people. Wake the fuck up. You're not gonna stop the cartels and the corruption and the rapes and the murders with more murders and more. It's just not gonna happen. You gotta start from the bottom down. Instead of going to the top up, bottom down. Each individual has to awaken as many individuals as he can. First, awaken himself, obviously. First, gotta see what's really at stake, see what's really going on. Educate yourself. Okay, the real resolution of these violent upheavals in Mexico starts and ends with education. These people are not educated. They are farmers, they are people that work on the field, bricklayers. They're people with scant resources and a big problem that is mobs raping and murdering them, robbing their crops. The people in charge of these self-defense groups, they're educated. They got money, they got land. They're not stupid. They know, for instance, that the market for marijuana crops in Michoacan is not going to end just because the Templarios are no longer there taking care of it. They know, for instance, that the market for amapola is not going to end just because the Templarios are there. So, knowledge is power, and if you want to, and if you want to have a world that is not as stupid or as dangerous as ours, the first thing you need to do is to empower the rest of the people around you to share the knowledge of what you know can work, so that the people around you, it's something that, it's another video, another one of these YouTube video guys, one that has a mask instead, I don't know his name, she's a masked dude on YouTube, said something very interesting. He said, they put these guys, Mireles and Papa Pitufo and all these guys, as leaders of the armed revolt in Mexico. And of course, leaders can be brought down. So you bring down the leader, there's no more armed revolt. I agree with that. But I have to make it even go further. I have to go into... let's consider the corruption in Mexico, okay? How many people need to be involved in the corruption at the government level? Well, let's start with the police force, which is the most basic element of corruption, right? It's most visible. First of all, in a very controlled environment like a police force, a police brotherhood, you cannot act without your superiors knowing that you acted. You can't take, a bribe, or you can't, hide evidence without somebody around you being aware of that. So that means that at the very high levels of the police force, the corruption is from the top down. It cannot be from the bottom up. I've spoken to a lot of cops here in Valle de Bravo, and they're all agreeing that the corruption comes from the top up down. It doesn't really, sure, they can take their bribes and everything, but in fact, it's the high-ranking officers that permit that shit to happen. So who controls the police? Well, the army. Why? Because they're the ones with the bigger guns. It's just simple mathematics. Follow the big guns. Right? If you don't follow the money, follow the big guns, because those are the two things that control social behavior. So, who is in control of the corruption of the police? The higher-ranking generals in the army. Mexico, for instance, is broken down into, I think, 5 security zones with 5 different generals, 3 stars or 4 stars, I'm not sure. They control each zone. These cats know what's going on. They know where all the cartels are, where all the weapons are. Why? Because that's their job. That's what they do all day long. And they control the flare-ups of violence to an extent that if it gets out of hand, they can shut it down. Well, the problem with that is that one has to consider what is really at their best interest. Generally speaking, I would think that their best interest would be, 1, to remain hidden. They don't want folks to know that they're in control. 2, to keep taxpayers paying taxes, because that's what finances the military-industrial complex, and to keep people serving the basic social structure that has been set up decades ago, so it doesn't collapse in on themselves, because the collapse would not serve their larger growth. And 3rd, protect their gang, which in this case is the army. See, last night I said in my shit video, I said basically what you need is you need to get all the big generals of all the large, Northcom, the Russians, the Chinese, and get them together to agree on a strategy for world peace. They probably already have done that, but their strategy depends perhaps upon the slaughter of many innocents. And that's the part that I get a little cranky about, because somehow it doesn't make sense, for instance, if there's a war between Russia and the United States, because they're not really existing national identities. They're just clever disguises for the control of large numbers of people and large land masses by the military that supports their own interests